Welcome to another edition of Meet Our Icons podcast. My name is Ricky Santana from Puerto Rico ICON Institute. Today it's a pleasure to interview foodpreneur.
There you
Cristal
go.
Díaz, how are you?
Díaz. Thank you. I know that it's a difficult word to say.
I'm a foodie, so I get it.
Well, there you go.
You just got off the plane, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate, but I think it's normal for a lot of entrepreneurs be on the move, just hustling back and forth. So today we want our audience to hear your story. There are not many women foodpreneurs in Puerto Rico. Are you the only one, or there are
No,
more?
I think there are a couple more. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So-
and we support them with our project. So
That's very important. Jerezana, right?
yes,
Muy bien.
de orgullo.
Qué bueno, me alegro. Vamos a hablar, we can go Spanglish, so I apologize for this, a little bit of de los dos.
No worries.
Let's talk about your journey to entrepreneurship. Where did you get bit by the bug of entrepreneurship?
Well, that's a tough one because I have been like selling stuff since I remember. Like, I did the little pulseritas in the school, so everybody bought it for $1. At some point, I tried to sell snails to my parents for some reason that I found in a little forest near the house. So I have been always selling stuff, but I would say in a more professional way, my background is in marketing and business administration bachelor degree. But I was an employee, just like pretty much everybody else. I was an employee for 14 years for the same company. So I did a little bit of entrepreneurship in the company. Most of the new businesses and projects that they used to develop, for some reason, ended up with me trying to figure them out, and then when they were born, it's like, okay, great, next. This is the other project. But officially 5 years ago, I was thinking about that today, actually. It was 5 years ago when I decided to...
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm in kinder now.
You're all grown up.
I'm a 5-year-old entrepreneur. But it was 5 years ago, a little bit before that, but when I decided, like, hey, I want to do something else, and I want it to be more related to what I love, which is food. I do eat a lot, even if
You can't tell.
you can't tell. I do. But most of it, I started to question what is in my plate and where it came from and why so much of it is imported. And that question turned into projects. Those projects, some of them ended up in a master degree thesis. Others ended up being businesses. And that's what I do. So it's more about following my passions and making a living out of it, more than I want to be an entrepreneur and just let's do this, right?
So you're the founder of Produce.
I am the co-founder of
Co-founder?
Produce.
Who are your partners?
We are 4 founders. The chef Martin Lausao from Cocina Abierta.
I know them very well.
Yes. And his partner on that business, Patricio Chames. Patricio is our COO. And then Francisco Tirado is also co-founder of Uva with his sister. He is co-founder of Produce as well, and then me. So we are 4 of us. And I always say that Produce have several mothers, like this is something that has happened in other jurisdictions and countries, like trying to reconnect with our local producers. But in Puerto Rico, more than a business, it's a huge task and something that we owe to ourselves, right? We have been carried away by the globalization. I think that by now, especially after the pandemic, we all have learned that it wasn't the thing that was going to save the the globe, right? It's really important to be connected with the world, definitely, and Puerto Rico needs more of that.
But not dependent.
But not dependent on it, and not depending only on one thing. And with food, which is something that we do every single day, at least 2 or 3 times a day, we pretty much depend on everybody else, and that's wrong.
So for our food supply in Puerto Rico, we pretty much have todos los huevos en la misma canasta.
Yes, and it's crazy because we all depend on a ship getting to port to give us food and to have food. And sometimes I always challenge the consumer because it's very easy to go to a supermarket. We have the fake notion that everything is available all the time.
Not anymore.
And I say fake because even though when there are things that are not arriving or whatever, still you go to a supermarket and you say, oh, everything is available, whatever, I can eat. Yeah, but at what cost? At what cost all of it is there? It costs to our environment, it costs unfair pay to a lot of people in the world because we don't know, or worse of it, we don't care of where it's coming from. So having that close relationship with our local producers is very important if you care about the humanity behind the food. And food is produced by humans. Even if a machine does the bar that you like or whatever, there is a human behind that machine. So that's my invitation to the consumer always. But I'm sorry that I digress a little bit. Coming back to where and how Produce was born. Well, this idea of reconnecting with local producers, Martin, the chef, had this idea to reconnect chefs with local producers because he wanted to buy local in his restaurant.
Farm to table?
Farm to table is a beautiful trend. I think the only beautiful trend that the gastronomy industry have had. So it's really meaningful, and he wanted to actually do the right thing, but it was very difficult. If you look at it from the restaurant perspective, the logistics of receiving 25, 30 farmers with little stuff selling things is not sustainable, you know? Some chefs do it. I won't say that they didn't. They do it, and they do it with a lot of love. But
it's a logistics nightmare.
But it's a logistic nightmare, and I might say that I'm sure that 90% of them, even when they want to, when the truth comes, if that cilantro is off or whatever, you don't have it or you didn't bring it, they're gonna go and buy it imported because they have to solve. They have a business to run, right? So the logistics and the convenience has to be there. Then on my master degree investigation and research, I started to, I interviewed so many local farmers, producers of all kinds, and chefs and historians, everybody that you can, economics, everybody that you can think of. And all of them agreed that technology was something that must be put into place to connect local producers with consumers. So when Martin and I talk about it, because I was a really huge fan of one of his restaurants, and he once told me like, hey, I know that you work in marketing or something like that, and I know that you're a big fan of food, but I'm looking for someone to work my marketing of the restaurants, and we have this other project to connect through an app. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing the same thing in my master. We should get together. And that's how we end up all being the co-founders of Produce. And it has been an amazing ride, I would say.
I'm glad you touched upon about the nature, looking at what's on your plate holistically. And that I'm a foodie as well, and you, in my case, you can tell.
No, come on.
Thank you for that. But one of the topics we want to touch upon and try to dig deep into it's our food security. And in a recent interview that we had with Alex Borshow, it's understanding, yes, we have 85% of our food that is imported, trying to understand which there are things here that we can grow. And then how we change the mentality of what areas we're not dependent on imports. What are the challenges that you're seeing out there to move from 85 to 15 to maybe it's 80-20, 70-30? What do you see in that landscape of our food security?
A couple of things come up to mind. First, I am one of those that think that thinking of 100% is unreal, and we should not aim for that. We are part of the world. We love olive oil. We love wine. We love so many things with our food and our diets, our traditional food, rice, beans.
Plátanos.
Well, plantains are produced here, but rice and beans, they don't.
True.
Right? The sofrito, that with what it is cooked, it does. But even though the garlic doesn't grow in Puerto Rico either, onions are seasonal. So we should not be thinking of a 100%. That's my first statement. Then what is important when we talk about food security is two things. From the public government side of the equation, you must look for ways to have food in your territory, right? Just because if something happens and those ships don't get to port, you have 2 million people to feed and you don't know how, or you don't have the tools to. We are very used to this savior is gonna come and send money or food or whatever. But what happens if something global happens? If something global happens, everybody's gonna be on the same situation. So there is no savior for that.
And I think we saw some of that with COVID, that
Yes.
there was a disruption in the supply chain.
And we are still living it.
And there's some stuff that is not readily available as it was in the past.
Yes, I agree
So
with
I think
you.
we got accustomed that I'm going to go to whatever chain store and I'm going to find everything.
And it's
Okay, we
not.
don't have A, B, and C, so let's buy D and E.
Yeah.
It happened with the chickens and the eggs.
Yes, it's happening right now. And what we see is that something that is affecting the chickens in other country, in other jurisdiction, is making us suffer of the lack of eggs when we have egg production in Puerto Rico and we need more of it, and we could have more of it. So sometimes, and I am doing another graduate studies in food studies now, so my brain is like fried with a lot of information right now. But food is very complicated. It's very complex. It involves people's lives. It involves health. It involves economics. It involves even politics. So it's very easy to go into this rabbit hole and never ending trying to think of solutions like for the whole thing of food security. And I am even more and more convinced that we need to narrow it down. We should, let's say, 10, 15 products that from the public sector perspective, we want to protect and make sure that we have those available. Well, let's say the viandas, the root vegetables, is something that grows beneath the air, the soil. In the case of a hurricane, very unlikely to get that damaged if you compare it to the plantains, for example.
They're less vulnerable.
Correct. And it's something that we all eat. And in an emergency, if people in an emergency that lasts months, right? I'm not talking 3 or 4 days.
Maria.
Yeah. When we're talking of something big, you want people eating healthy food. You don't want people eating stuff from a can forever. So viandas is something that everybody eats. It is something that we can produce. So it's better to focus on that and then starting to think of all these other. There are so many ideas out there. I was doing a research recently for an assignment, and I found this. I have been trying to build with other partners and organizations, trying to build some type of index that actually tells our producers and growers, hey, of these thousands or hundreds of products that we import, you know what, these 15, 20, we can produce them here. Don't focus on the others that we can't. These we can. And of these that we can, these are imported. This amount, pounds. And this is the value that the market is paying for that. Can you grow that and sell it within the range, the price range? Because if we do that and we have conversations with producers, that connection that I'm talking about of the consumer, the market, the needs of the market with the producers, I know that there are producers out there more than willing to grow what they can sell. They want that.
It's more an issue of distribution.
It's an issue of distribution. Well, yes, in the world, the issue is not food production. The issue is food distribution.
And that's your solution to the problem, to produce.
Yes, and in Puerto Rico, we have been trying to reconnect and make it easier for the small and medium producers, which is almost 70% of all the producers that we have in the island. They are small and medium. We don't have the geographical conditions of huge farms of thousands and thousands of acres doing the same thing, which is not sustainable for the environment either. So we need to come up, and this is what Produce has been trying, to connect with those many small and medium producers that are on the island and giving them a market so they feel confident to grow even more food.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there a disconnect or how we can bridge food security with the cost of healthy food? Is there a disconnect between one and the other?
Yes, there is a disconnect. It's very difficult to measure in a numeric way how one affects the other, but it's not a secret. Weeks ago, we had the first Congress. Well, it was a call from the White House on hunger and food security by the President of the U.S. That didn't happen in 50 years. And it's because we all already know that what we have been eating is not good for our health. So when we talk about food security, there are like two divisions. You know that there is a new term for everything nowadays. So when we talk about food security, there is a variance also on nutritional security. Because you can have food security with a lot of fast foods and canned food and whatever.
That just solves part of the equation.
That part, exactly. That might suffer the hungriness. But does that solve the this is our gas to run, the nutrients that we take upon our food is what makes the country works. It's what makes people actually be there and support and be part of the economy and support the growth of our country. If we don't have people that are eating healthy, that have mental health, that have all some type of quality of life.
Because the one thing is food security, but the other is food affordability.
Correct. And then something that we all must think of is that most of this junk food is really cheap. Why?
At the beginning it's cheap, eventually becomes expensive.
But why is cheap for the consumer? Because with public money, we are supporting, subsidizing this type of food, because we subsidize the grains, because we subsidize the corn, because we subsidize all this stuff that which then come up with our food. But we could be subsidizing the real thing, the vegetables, the fruits. Why not? We need to think about that. Why not?
So it comes down to public policy.
It comes down to public policy. And some of it is done in a federal level, and there is no much that we could do about it. But there is a lot that can be done in a local level. There is a lot. We only need the will. We only need the will.
So to that extent, how do you see each and every family in Puerto Rico, the ones that do have un poquito de patio in their house, how do you see as part of solving that food quality and food security in growing, having their own huerto casero? What has been your experience with what you have seen out there? Not sure that is the solution, but
no, but it's part of it. Because if you grow, even if you have live in an apartment and you just have a pot in the kitchen with some cilantro or recao, right? At least you are conscious that you have to take care of that. That it takes of your time, at least 1 minute a day to spray it with water or whatever. So you are more connected to your food. You're one step ahead, I would say. And if you have a little garden or patio or a little farm, and you have your own plantains and you have your own stuff and your own ajís, again, at least you're connected to some of your food. It's not necessarily the huge and perfect solution, but you are being part of it because you are conscious of what you are eating.
To my point, I think it just gives you more appreciation.
Yes. And definitely more healthy food consumption in your family if you cook of it. Is what they call in Europa the kilometro zero food, right? It's on your patio. So what you want with that is not only people eating some things from their garden, but actually being conscious of what they are, what their food intake is. And then someone that plants something and finally, I always give the example of the carrots. No matter if you're a kid or an adult, when you have the opportunity to pull the carrots out of the ground, that very second, you feel so powerful because you put the seed there, and now it's alchemia, right? You are changing something that you put in there with a little bit of, water and love. In 3 months, you pull out something totally different. And that experience is very important to make people conscious of what is on their plates. So it's not the whole solution because not everybody has a farm, not everybody has a patio, but it's important there are people that sadly think that things come in a plastic foam plate in a supermarket. They don't even know how the real thing is. And that's sad. And there are a lot of kids that grow thinking that the carrots are a bunch of orange stuff that is in a supermarket. They not necessarily know what it takes. So it's very powerful to grow your own food. I do it in my home. As much as I can. I don't say that I grow everything.
We try in my home, but I'm not very successful at it.
But you gotta keep trying.
We do it, and it's fun because it's so sexy that when you're gonna cook something and you can picar el recao, the smell.
Oh, so good.
It's
totally different.
Very, very different. So I think part of it goes towards education and public policy. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure because my daughters are older right now. They're 19 and 23. But are there any efforts that you're aware as public, whether it's private or public education, where they are teaching our young children the importance of agriculture, what it really means? It's not that, oh yeah, you went to the marketplace and you picked it up. No, like that came from the ground. That was a process. Do you know if there are any efforts?
Yes. There are little efforts happening in many public and private schools. I know of many publics, not that sure of private ones. But there are a lot of grants from USDA for this, but a lot of people don't know how to fill out grants. So that's another challenge. But I know that there are efforts to just teach children and have them touch the soil and know and experiment and pull out their carrots and pull their sweet potatoes and see how food is made, how really food is made. Even just think about this. There are Puerto Ricans, adults, and that they go to a supermarket and they don't know the difference of a yautía from a malanga, from a yabuca.
Batata, llame.
Yeah, you put them on I don't know what is that. That's sad. You know, it's our food. Has been always part of our diets. So education is a huge part of it, and from the producer perspective, which is a private effort, we do have a blog, and we show people where the food that we buy from comes from and who are the producers, and videos of picking up the stuff. Yeah, education is a huge part of this because we have been within the supermarket bubble since the 30s, in Puerto Rico 50s. But we have been here forever, and there are generations that don't know how to or how they look. So when we talk about that pot of cilantro or the little garden, it's not only about your own effort, but also to appreciate the effort of our producers. It's not easy to be a food producer, much less in Puerto Rico. Like, climate is crazy. Sometimes you have rainy days or months that they're not supposed to be rainy months, and then you have sunny days and droughts, and you are like praying for a little drop of water, then you have a hurricane or a storm. And so even though when we have a beautiful climate that pretty much allows us to grow food all year, it's important that we as consumers are connected with the seasons and with what happens with our food out there, and that these public policies that we think of actually accounts for those challenges that the producers have. So we aim for a food security plan that is realistic, right? And yeah, if at some point we have to import food because there was a hurricane and whatever, fine. But before Maria, we were 20 years without huge hurricanes. What happened?
I think Maria should have been a wake-up call that we need to go back to our roots and secure our food security. You clearly have a passion for food, and we can go forever talking about that, but I want our audience to get to know you more as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
What drives Cristal Díaz as an entrepreneur?
I think it's the passion for what we are doing, and knowing that even if it's a little dent, we are trying to fix a system that doesn't work. And then I think that we are in the right, we have like the right, how did I say that?
¿Español?
Sí, estoy pensando. Climate, ¿no? El clima está ahí for food to be important in our lives because of Maria, because of the COVID situation, because of the global crisis of distribution and logistics, because in Puerto Rico there have been so many small projects doing their own thing, and now with social media everybody can know about them, let's say 10, 15 years ago, if you don't get to television, nobody knew that you existed. That's not now the
Everybody
reality.
has a voice. If you have
Everybody
a
has a
smartphone, you have a
voice.
voice.
You have a voice. You can share with the world what you're doing, even if it's small. So I think that we have the right tools in place to actually feel a real change. Government will always be a little bit behind. That's sad, but it's part of the history. It is what it is. But we, as a consumer, now have so much power with the mobile phone. You can check where this came from. You can take action upon it and make your purchase in the right places, that buy to the right people that you want to support. The power of our dollar nowadays, that even with the inflation, and that is so much little than previous years, still we have so much power with what we decide to do with our dollar. So I don't know, I feel energized as a business owner when you can see that you can make changes and that you are impacting positively not only the lives of the consumers, but the lives of over 400 local small and medium producers that we buy from. And when Fiona happened and we started to buy from different farmers to help communities in need, thanks to some foundations that believed in this connection, it was powerful to hear other organizations tell us, hey, everybody that I have called, you have bought something from them. Producer have bought something from them. So that didn't happen with Maria because Producer didn't exist back there. So that put me to think that we are doing something right? We are actually connecting with producers not only when there is an emergency, but always. And we are doing it very easy for the consumer or whoever is in need to get healthy, locally sourced food readily available. We are giving the consistency and the convenience that everybody was looking for, that the chefs wanted, that the consumers that believe that eating local wanted. We deliver to every place in the island, even Vieques and Culebra. We actually do have an order today going to Maricao. That's a 2 hours drive, but we do it because we believe that people should be able to access local good food. And that's what drives me.
You're certainly a woman in a mission. In a perfect world, where do you envision yourself 10 years from now?
20.
10, 20 in the future? Where do you see yourself?
Okay. Oh, geez. Well, in 20, I will be 57. So by that time, I expect to be a little bit retired.
Playing with the chickens?
Playing with my chickens. No, but actually, I love to teach. I love education, and I think that everything that I am learning now at some point will have academic value. So I kind of see myself sometimes like going towards academia. Some people think that I will be in the public sector at some point. I'm not sure. I don't like to deal with party politics or whatever. I do love public policy and how to change things.
Not politics, which is very different.
No politics. So, but I see myself contributing to making Puerto Rico a better place where all we can live. So by that time, I expect to be eating healthy and good local food easier than we do now. I expect that I will be in my little mountain where I live now.
Calle?
In Calle, but I am not paying the bank by that time, right? My my
No
houses
mortgage.
are, I don't have any mortgage, and I can focus on whatever is my passion at that point.
Entrepreneurship is an interesting journey, and part of what we're doing with our podcast is for our audience to learn the journey of entrepreneurship. Um, it has a lot of failures in that journey. So, what would be your advice to somebody that is looking at you as far as the road to entrepreneurship? What would be your recommendations or advice?
Well, this is not for everybody, and that's okay.
I mean, it's not easy.
It's not easy, and it's okay to be an employee your whole life and be sleeping happy 8 hours and having your check every Friday on the bank, and that's cool. That's good. I actually envy some,
I know the feeling.
some of that feeling. I remember the first. I used to receive my check every other Friday, and I remember when the first 2 weeks had passed and I didn't receive a check, and I was like, okay, now we're rolling, right? So this is how it is, and this is how it's gonna be for good. And I think that it's not for everybody, but if you have that thing that is calling you, um, and this is not a phrase of mine, this is a phrase of Antonio. Antonio is the owner of Connect 24, and he said this to me when I was still an employee, actually. He said that um, get in love with a problem, not with an idea, because the idea is way harder to sell. A problem, if it has a solution, there may be a lot of people that are willing to pay to have that problem solved. And that stayed with me and have stayed with me for the last years, because I do have two businesses. I have Produce, and I also have a bed and breakfast. And Produce is a solution for a problem. El pretexto is an idea.
Hospitality.
Hospitality, and I'm the host, and yeah, I am a little bit crazy by now. You could think.
So, now that you mentioned hospitality, are you curious about going more or venture more deeper into that sector, or right now your main focus is just food?
It's food, and even through El Pretexto, I prepare dinners for my guests and my breakfast. Everything is 100% local, and I educate through food to visitors and Puerto Ricans that stay with us. It doesn't matter. I try to educate through food, and they're trying what we can grow in our island, what the possibilities are. And when I began El Pretexto, Produce didn't exist. So it was very hard for me to find this food. I was stopping at 6, 7 farms, trying to buy stuff. I couldn't do it 100% local. It was, now it's so easy with the app. I just do the purchase of my groceries, and then I can focus on cooking for my guests. So it is, you have to be very passionate of whatever solution you're trying to do. And I don't see myself going deeper towards the hospitality. I think that with El Pretexto, we have been more of an enlightenment to a lot of people of what can be done if you have passion for something and actually you do it right, and you put pretty much all your heart in it, which is what I have done. And I love to see that there are so many pretextitos getting born all over the island. And that makes me happy. I think that we are not here only to compete. Competition is good, and you always have to have that in your blood. But we also need to think of how we all make it in our country. We can't be fighting against ourselves. We need to create opportunities for everybody to grow and thrive and stay in our island. So that's what wakes me up every day. And I do sleep 8 hours. Maybe I don't have the check in the bank, but I do sleep 8 hours.
Cristal, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We're going to keep this conversation for ICON November the 9th at the Ritz-Carlton in Dorado. You can go to our website, Puerto Rico ICONPR.org. Cristal, if you had one wish in your business, what would that wish be?
Realistic.
Realistic.
I will, maybe because this is my background, marketing or whatever, but I will appreciate all the free media tours, influencers, whatever you want, so everybody get to know that Produce exists and that you can get your groceries delivered to anywhere you live in the island, and that you can actually support local producers in an easy way. I would love that to happen.
I think that's going to happen. Cristal,
Thank you.
mucho gusto, un placer. Stay tuned for our next edition of Meet Our Icon podcast. And again, Puerto Rico Icon, November the 9th at the Ritz-Carlton in Dorado. Check our website, iconpr.org. Thank you for your